I'm pretty excited, Roob.
I know you are, Dave. Dave's been waiting for this moment since training camp ended last year.
Yeah,
Your favorite time.
Pretty much. We're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. Eagles report for training camp today. We'll be at practice tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning. Some of you, as you listen to this, we've already watched practice, which is even more exciting because I don't know what I've seen, but I know it'll be something. I'm excited. I am excited, though. Like, all joking aside, have my sunscreen ready to pack it. New notepad. I already packed my binoculars.
Wait, what's on the front of that?
My notepad?
Looks like you wrote something.
My initials.
Oh, I thought it said D2. I thought it was like day 2 of training camp.
Oh, no. That'd be a lot. Like a notepad per day.
I think we kind of wouldn't be surprised if that was your protocol.
That'd be a lot of paper.
Yeah, I like the super small steno pads, the tiny little. You get them at like Walgreens. They're like 4x2.
My handwriting's messy enough as it is. If I had to write in that small of an area, it wouldn't go well for me.
We all have our own customs and traditions.
Yeah. What's your handwriting like? Do you have good handwriting?
It's not good.
Yeah, me neither. I've never had good handwriting. I used to get bad grades in like elementary school for that.
Really? Penmanship?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they should really be grading people on that. I don't know.
It didn't stick. I mean, they tried to make me better at it. It didn't work.
That's obsolete. Like some of the obsolete, like we had typing was a class when I was in
well, that translates.
I guess a little bit. But typing on a typewriter on a laptop are kind of different skills.
Different skills, but the keys are still in the same spot. Although they have invented a few letters since.
Yeah. We didn't have R, G, or I back when I was in middle school.
Finished it at what? At P?
Yeah.
That was the cutoff. They didn't get to the other letter.
Added some new letters since then.
All right. Sorry for
I don't want to tell you about geography and how many states there were.
Training camp, we're excited. We've kind of broken it down a bunch of different ways, but there is some news.
How many training camps is this for you?
13 altogether. Yeah.
You're getting there.
Do you know your number?
I didn't cover training camp in 87 because Phil Sheridan was on the beat. Yeah, I don't think I went at all in 87. So 88.
35?
36.
36, okay.
It'd be 36.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so 17 at Lehigh, 11 at the NovaCare, and 8 in Westchester.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a little different now.
And none at Lake Saranac. I'm going to tell that story at the end of the pod. I'm going to tell that story.
Yeah, that'd be great. I found it pretty interesting. So that's a good little teaser. I like that.
I'm going to send you the photo as we go.
We have some news since the last time we potted. The Eagles signed a couple guys. Dennis Kelly, our old friend Dennis Kelly, former late round draft pick. It's been several years since he played here. They traded him in 2016 for Dorial Green Beckham. They didn't win that trade, but Dennis Kelly is back here, and now we just found out it sounds like Deon Cain is signing.
Deon Cain, USFL MVP. But it was funny because after that, Dennis Kelly, I mean, he was a backup here. He was a spot starter, but DGB was 23, and he was coming off a season where he averaged like 17 yards a catch. I think he had about 40 catches as a rookie. Had a pretty promising rookie year. Man, everyone thought the Eagles stole DGB, and he just had a miserable, terrible year here. He averaged 24 yards per game when he started. He started 6 or 7 games. They cut him, and he never played again. He was never in another camp.
Yeah, he got into some legal trouble a couple of years ago.
He's one of only 3 players in history to have 30 or more catches in each of his first 2 years and never play again. Wow.
It was pretty evident, though, like pretty soon when he got here that it wasn't going to work out.
It sure was. Yeah. He had ability. I mean, he had good size, but it's just funny because here we are 7 years later. he's been out of the league. And Dennis Kelly's had a nice career for himself. I think he was originally drafted in 2012.
Yeah.
So he's in his 12th season. Good for him. He's an important guy. I mean, he's a solid backup guy. He's played a lot of football in his career. He started a bunch of games, mainly a backup, but he's pretty solid.
Yeah, and the Eagles kind of had a little bit of a void in the depth department. It was kind of a luxury, I guess, last year to have Andre Dillard coming off the bench. Obviously, he didn't work out as a first-round pick, but having that guy on your bench is a nice luxury to have. And I think their tackle depth was lacking a little bit without him. You still had Jack Driscoll, you have Brett Toth, but I guess Tyler Steen, you can say, could give you tackle depth. But Dennis Kelly is a legitimate swing tackle. He can play on either side of the line. That's a valuable guy to have.
Yeah, it is. And it's a typical Howie Roseman move. Didn't cost anything. A guy who's really experienced. If it doesn't work out, and he's at an age now where you never know. He could he might not make the team. There's no guarantee he'll make the team, but there's no downside and there's potential pretty good upside.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of an easy decision to make for them, but it does change the roster projections a little bit because you'd assume that Dennis Kelly is going to make the team. So one guy might be left out. So we'll get to a 53-man roster projection later in the podcast, and it does make that a little trickier. But what do you make of Deon Cain? Had a really nice summer last year here.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I mean, he's not a kid. I think he's 26.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't caught a pass in the NFL since 2019. So he's bounced around. He went to the USFL. He caught 3 touchdowns in the championship game for the Birmingham Stallions against the Pittsburgh Maulers. He was MVP of the game. Yeah, he had a good year. It's a position where a guy like Deon Cain, he's going to get a chance. The bottom of that wide receiver position there's just a lot of question marks. And a guy like him, if he has a good summer and he's coming off, USFL, he's confident. He's been playing, so he should be sharp from the get-go. And he'll be an interesting guy to watch. He's got good size. He's been around, 6 years now? It's 5 years he's been bouncing around. So it's a move that can't hurt. He's still a long shot, but interesting guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he made a really strong roster push.
He did.
Last year. He was kind of the camp darling of 2022. So we had our candidates this year. You can maybe throw him in the mix again. I don't think that's crazy to think that he could kind of duplicate that success.
Yeah.
He knows this system really well because he was drafted by the Colts back in 2018. So he knows Nick from then. So he had kind of a leg up last year, especially because he signed during the 21 season. So, yeah, it's not crazy to think he can make some waves. He's still a long shot. I think they're probably going to keep 5, and we know the 5 already, but we'll see. He's got a legitimate chance.
And I think the one wild card there is if they do move Quez, which I don't think is likely, but it's possible.
I think it's pretty unlikely just because of the depth isn't great.
But if they feel like he really needs to change the scenery and it's just not going to work here, what he went through last year, it's tough to overcome that. You got to be pretty mentally strong to have a year like that and then come back in confident. And, he's certainly got ability, but they might feel like he needs to change the scenery. And if they can get a pick, which I'm not sure you can, but he does have a trait that teams want. So it's a possibility. It's not likely, but something to keep an eye on.
It's funny. I was just reading up on Deon Cain's summer last year, and one of our big questions was, what if a roster spot comes down to Deon Cain or Jalen Reagor? Jalen Reagor was here last summer. That feels like it was a decade ago.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hard to believe.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if he would have gotten a ring if they won.
I doubt it.
You got to give Jalen Reagor a ring.
Let's move on from
please.
Any Jalen Reagor talk. This is our first podcast since our session with Nick Sirianni, all the beat guys. You've probably seen a bunch of similar stories out there from all the beat guys. I'll kind of take them behind the scenes a little bit, Rube, how this works. Like every year, the head coach does a embargo session with all the beat writers, and it's typically the embargo basically lifts the week of training camp or the week before. So it's basically just to supplement coverage leading into a busier time. So I actually thought there were some interesting things that came out of that conversation.
And just to add to what you just said, it's really one of our rare chances to get Nick when he's not in a hurry. Mm-hmm. He's not rushed. When did we talk to him?
Right at the end of OTA.
Late June. Yeah, middle late June. It was up at the frat house, the media house. So he was out of the NovaCare complex. I think were we upstairs? We were upstairs. There's like a lounge area. So he was very relaxed, and it's an opportunity for him to flesh out answers, which he doesn't usually have problems doing anyway. But when he does it, we only have time for 2 or 3 questions. So we had a little more time with him. He was a little more in depth, and I thought it was a good session that we had.
Yeah. Some of the things that came out of it, a lot of Super Bowl talk, which was our choice, obviously not his. I want to make that clear. It wasn't like he walked in there wanting to talk about the Super Bowl. We asked him a bunch of questions about it and getting over it, because it is really the biggest storyline with this team. Not a lot of drama going on with this roster. You see all these holdout stories across the league. Like the Eagles don't have that.
And they haven't for a long time.
Yeah. They've been pretty good about keeping their own guys happy.
Yeah.
But the big story, the drama with them is like, how do they get over a pretty crushing Super Bowl loss? And I thought Nick's answers were pretty telling about that, because they're kind of walking a fine line with it a little bit.
It's a fine line. Yeah. And we each kind of took a different piece of that story. How are the players getting over it, and how is he getting over it? It's funny because I asked him about how he's getting over it and how hard that's been. And he talked for like 4 minutes about how, we come back and we're back in our routine. I had to hire coordinators and some new coaches. So, you don't really have time to dwell on it. And then, then you're into planning for OTAs and train. And then he paused and he said, but man, I'll never get over it. And, I just, it torments me and it haunts me. Something he told a story about how he'll be in his office watching cut-ups, and the play will come on from that game. And, he's throwing, in his words, F-bombs out in his office. And people are like, Nick, you okay? What's wrong? So I think it's pretty clear it really had a profound effect on him. I mean, they had that game won. They really did. I mean, we've gone through it so many times, but you're up 10, middle of the third quarter in a Super Bowl. You kind of expect to win. So it was right there for them. Even down to the end, it was tied. So many things went wrong, and I think that makes it even tougher. I mean, just the punt return. I don't want to get into all the details, but he talked about it, and he said he said I still haven't gotten over his senior year at Mount Union. It was the one year they didn't win the national title. They had won 55 straight games, 4 straight Division III titles. He said, I still haven't gotten over that. And that was 20 years ago. And he said, I'll never. He said, 50, 30, 20 years from now, I'll still be trying to get over that game. And I like that. I mean, he could have just said, well, you move on. It's a new year. But he was pretty honest about it. And you could tell it's going to, no matter how much success he ever has here, it's going to be something that motivates him and drives him, and he carries with him.
Yeah. I found it curious a little bit that he showed a photo in OTAs in a team meeting. It was a photo. I don't know exactly which photo it was, but it was a photo of Eagles players walking off the field in Phoenix with yellow and red confetti raining down on top of them. And it was a message like, yeah, like this happened. We lost this game. There are some new players, but a lot of the same faces from last year. And he kind of talked to the guys about using it as motivation, but not being super focused on it either. That's kind of the fine line I was talking about, because if you can channel that the right way, then obviously use that as motivation. But I think there's this tendency to want to fast forward and like, I just want to be back in the Super Bowl and play in that game again. But you can't skip any steps. And that's really been his message, that like, you're in OTAs, you have to worry about OTAs. If you're in training camp, worry about the practice and training camp, because you have to take all those steps. You can't just get to the top of the ladder. You got to climb every rung. And I think that's a very important message to remember, because I think from like fans' perspective, like you think about the Sixers, right? Like we watch this team and every year, like just fast forward and get to the playoffs and see if they can get past where they got last year. But the team can't do that. Like they have to go through each step. And in football, it's even more important because every game matters so much more.
Yeah. I've told this story, maybe not on the podcast, but in 2001 NFC Championship game in St. Louis at I guess it was the TWA Dome at that point, when the Rams were celebrating like crazy after they won the game. They had, they built a big stage in the middle of the field, and they were getting trophies and confetti and all that. And I remember walking down the tunnel to see what was going on, and Donovan was standing by himself at the end of the tunnel, just watching. Donovan McNabb, that is. And well, there might be some people, it was 22 years ago. There might be some people don't know. And he was just standing there watching for several minutes, and like everyone else is back in the locker room. And I remember asking him at the presser, a few minutes later, I was like, why he did that. And he said, I just always want to remember what it feels like to lose this game. That's what the confetti thing reminded me of. He never did make it past, well, he made it past that round. But I always like when a team loses a World Series or their season ends in the playoffs, whatever it is, the guys that sit on the bench and just watch it, because it means something to them, and they're going to take that and it's going to drive them to work even harder.
Yeah. A few other things from Sirianni. Talked a little bit about running back rotation. You wrote about that. One of the biggest storylines entering this season is going to be about the running backs. And we'll talk about running backs in general in a little bit, and just the position as a whole, because it's been big news this offseason. But the Eagles don't have a guy this year.
Yeah, and I liked his answer on this one too. He said, I don't know what we're going to do. It's going to depend on who's got the hot hand. It's going to depend on the opponent. He said there might be some games where one guy gets 20 carries. There might be a game where, 3 guys get 7 carries. That's a paraphrase, but his point was we're going to either be committee or one guy, depending on the week, the drive, the score, the opponent, the situation. And I think running back by committee is not always a great idea, because it's rare to have a bunch of talented running backs, but they do. I mean, all these guys have different skill sets and different abilities. Boston Scott, short yardage. Rashad Penny's just explosive, big play guy. Swift is a good runner and a really good receiver. Gainwell is versatile, third down guy. So you can mix and match if you want, but if Rashad Penny gets 11 yards on his first carry and 14 on his next, he's going to keep feeding them. And I think we saw that with Gainwell in the playoffs last year. He had the hot hand, and they stuck with him over a Pro Bowler who had 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. So I think it's going to make them tougher to defend, just because if Nick doesn't know what they're going to do, the defense certainly doesn't know what they're going to do. I think it's going to make them harder to defend. And look, having that kind of depth is also important if you have injuries, and we all know Penny's history and to an extent Swift's history. So I like the fact that he's going to be pliable with it, and I think there will be games where DeAndre Swift has 17, 18 carries, and maybe nobody else has more than 5 or 6. But I also think there'll be games where it's split pretty evenly, and there might be games where Gainwell has the most carries and Penny. So it's going to be fun to watch. They're all talented guys. They all have question marks associated with them. Gainwell really hasn't done much. I mean, he had a great game against the Giants, but few and far between for big moments. But you see his potential. Penny with the injuries. Boston, we don't even know if he'll dress out, but he's been a role player, and Swift has been banged up and has had problems with consistency. So it's a really interesting group, and it's going to be really fun to see how it all comes together.
Yeah, I think the best evidence we have of Nick being willing to ride the hot hand, you're right, is last year. I mean, if he was willing to ride the hot hand in the playoffs over a Pro Bowl running back, then he's certainly going to be willing to do it this year when he doesn't have that marquee guy, you would think.
Yeah, exactly. It was still weird. It was still weird how that all. I mean, Miles Sanders went from, he had one of the best years an Eagles running back has ever had, to being an afterthought. And like nobody's ever really. The Eagles. I remember asking Nick about it at I think the Thursday before the Super Bowl. I was like, how's Miles handling the fact that Kenny's kind of encroaching on his workload and becoming more of a featured guy? And he's like, oh, we have packages for Kenny on third down. And then the Super Bowl, Miles disappears. So it was strange, but I like Miles, and Miles is a good player, but he wasn't the same at the end of the year. And this way, somebody's going to have the hot hand at the end of the year. I don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah, hopefully someone does for their sake.
You would think with this collection of guys, and the flip side of that, and I mean, their cap figure combined is the same as Miles. So, I mean, you
mean Miles Sanders, the only running back to get paid this offseason?
Yeah, exactly. Which is crazy, and that's another part of this is like you have so many fewer headaches. I mean, Gainwell's the only guy out of this group that's signed beyond this year, but if you have premier backs like Miles Sanders, you're just asking for trouble because they all want to get paid more than they're going to get paid, so they're all going to be unhappy.
Yeah, in certain ways, like I mentioned, we'll hit that in a minute, but real quick before our break, Rube, practice starts on Wednesday morning. Every year there are a few guys who aren't ready for practice, whether they're football injuries, non-football injuries. Any guys that you think we might not see when practice starts?
Well, I'm curious about Avonte Maddox. You hope he's been out. He's going to be out there, but that's a question, and they need him.
Yeah, he did not practice in the spring, at least when we were there.
Right,
had off-season surgery, I believe, after the year ended. So they need him. Derek Barnett, I don't believe, practiced in the spring. Right. Obviously, tore his ACL last year. Your boy Devin Allen.
Yeah.
Could we see a non-football injury in the mix here?
Yeah, track injury. He didn't race in the semifinals at the U.S. Championship, so we thought he got hurt in the quarterfinals where he ran like 13:51, which is like pedestrian time. But he actually got hurt training the Monday after the New York Grand Prix. I saw an interview with him where he said he got hurt in practice. And he tried to run at nationals, but now he didn't run in any of the Diamond League meets, which he would have run in. So he hasn't done anything since the semifinals of nationals. It was a calf injury.
When was that?
That would have been like June, last week of June.
Okay.
So he's had a month, but calves aren't great, and he needs to be healthy. I mean, he's one guy who can't afford to miss time. He's a long shot healthy. So, they obviously like his potential and his speed, good size. You saw in the Cleveland preseason game what he could do, track a deep ball, but he's got to be out there. So that'll be an interesting guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, a couple others. I went back and looked at my notes from OTAs. Jaden Hazelwood, Josiah Scott missed some practice. Marlon Tuipulotu was out there for the second of our two viewing windows in OTAs, but you never know. He's coming off a knee injury from last year, so we'll see if he's ready to go.
And Josiah Scott's an interesting one because, we don't know how that nickel position is going to shape up, and we don't know. I don't think we know what his injury was or why he wasn't there, but if he's not participating from the start of training camp, it kind of changes the picture in that slot. We'll see how Zach McPherson fits in and how that all works out. And especially if Maddox isn't practicing, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. plenty of answers coming on that soon. And we should have mentioned it earlier, but we will do pods every day the Eagles practice, which is not every day anymore. It's just about every other day during training camp. But people seem to enjoy those last year, and we'll do them again this year. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Rube. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. I wanted to get your take on this whole running back situation in the NFL. We were kind of joking about it, but really, Miles Sanders was the only running back to really get paid this offseason. We've watched this Saquon Barkley story kind of unfold. He ends up getting a reworked one-year deal, so he's not going to play on the tag, but still not the long-term commitment he was hoping for. Josh Jacobs got tagged. He doesn't have that long-term deal. That deadline passed. We've seen this now for a while. Is there any way to fix it?
No, I mean, I don't, because I think GMs don't think anything's broken. And I did some research this week on it. I think what was it? The last running back with a cap figure over, I believe it's like 1.8 million to be a team's leading rusher on a Super Bowl championship team was Marshawn Lynch with Seattle back in 2000, what year did they win it? 2013. 14. So, I mean, you look at the running backs that Super Bowl teams have. Look at the Eagles in 17. I mean, they were paying Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement, LeGarrette Blount next to nothing. Wendell Smallwood, and last year was the same. I mean, you look at these cap figures, and half the guys, more than half the leading rushers on Super Bowl teams since Marshawn Lynch were undrafted. So, I mean, teams know that they can recycle guys. They can find yourself a Sony Michel, use them for a year, move on to another guy. They know that teams that spending money on running backs doesn't translate into success. It's really obvious any way you look at it. And when you don't spend money on running backs, you have as much value with the running back, and you have more cap space to sign guys that do translate to success, like cornerbacks, edge rushers, and receivers. So I don't think it's going to change. I think it's going to keep going in this direction. And Howie was really a pioneer in this. He was one of the first guys. And I added up the cap figures of every team, the running back cap figures of every team since 2017. In 2016, the Eagles paid their running backs a lot. Sproles had a big contract that year. But since 17, the Eagles cap figures for running backs have been 3.2, 2.6, 3.4, 3.4, 3.6, 5.2 last year. Now, right now it's 7.9 for this year, but obviously, we'll see who makes the team and how that goes. But they're the only team in football that hasn't been over $8 million for any year during that span. And the Commanders are the only team that spent less on running backs since 2017. They spent $30,000 less. So they're right in the same ballpark. So teams that have success aren't spending money on running backs. And I understand if you're a running back, you feel slighted, but it's smart roster management. They're not slighting anybody. It's just it's value. And there's more value in every other position, even kickers.
Well, kind of. I mean, I wish I want to figure out a way to supplement their income somehow.
Why?
Because they're star players. Like Saquon Barkley is a big deal. People are buying his jersey. The running back position still has a role.
Well, he's getting money for that. But I mean he's been banged up. I mean, these guys at that position. How many running backs play 16 games in a year or 17 games in a year? There are very few.
Yeah.
And so, most of these guys, you look at running backs and you look at the last 10 guys that led the league in rushing and where they were 2 years later. And like a third of them are out of the league within 2 years. I mean, a third of them. I mean, who was it? I look at DeMarco Murray. I mean, he led the NFL in rushing the year before he came here.
Yeah.
He was out of the league.
Player of the year. And that's why it's like when the rookie pay scale came into effect, like it really hurt running backs. Right? Because like these other guys are earning their next big contract, and a lot of running backs never get that second contract.
Right, because they're not getting drafted in the first round, so they don't even get the big first contract.
Yeah, well, some do.
A couple, but not many.
Not many.
I think was it 8 in the last 10 years. I think in the first.
It's not many. We had 2 this year, but I don't know. It stinks. Like I feel bad for those guys.
I mean, it's not like they're broke.
They're not broke, but like they're watching everyone else, literally everyone else get broken off.
Well, I mean, it's smart cap. As long as there's a salary cap, I don't know how you avoid it.
Yeah, I don't know. And another really important point is that the CBA isn't up anytime soon, so it's not even like there's a way to change it. But I wonder if there's a way to like some sort of incentivized pay outside of a cap. Like I don't know how you would do it.
I mean, there are,
could you kind of eliminate the franchise tag maybe? And so for those top backs, it becomes like a weapon franchise tag instead of a running back franchise tag, and like de-incentivize using the tag on running backs?
That's not going to happen.
Why not?
Why would the owners do that?
Well, there's a players association.
Yeah. I'm getting crazy thunder here. How about you down there in Jersey?
No, I had some roll through earlier. I had my lights flicker at one point, and I was a little nervous about it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy out there. But anyway, I hear what you're saying. I don't think anything is going to change, and I think the whole key to it is the fact that the CBA is not up for almost a decade. Yeah. So to make any changes in the CBA now, I mean, basically, management council and the union would have to agree to do it, and I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, everyone else is making money, so tough luck in a way.
Yeah.
All right, you want to go through 53-man roster projection?
Sure.
Before camp, it's always fun to kind of go through it now before these guys have a chance to separate. We'll kind of go through this quickly, position by position, and we'll start with quarterback. I think that Jalen Hurts is probably going to make the team. After that, I do have them keeping 3, Mariota and Tanner McKee.
Yeah, I have the same group.
Ian Book have a shot?
I guess he's got a shot if Tanner McKee turns into Carson Strong, but we've already seen more from Tanner McKee in OTAs than we saw all summer from Carson Strong. So
that's true.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Running back, I'm keeping 4, Swift, Gainwell, Penny, Boston Scott.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe an injury there is always possible. Trey Sermon will be the next guy out.
Yeah, and everyone's favorite running back. Excuse me, but I think that's really like we know Rashad Penny can play, but can he get to the starting line healthy is the big question.
Yeah, and even if he gets there, you might want to try to keep around a Trey Sermon on the practice squad because you never know.
Exactly.
How about receiver? How many are you keeping there?
Receiver's weird. I kept 5.
Yeah, probably the same 5 as me.
Brown, Smith, Quez, Zacchaeus, and Covey.
Yeah.
And
I think some people don't think Covey's going to make it for some reason. I've had some Covey comments come my way. I mean, he still has a role. He's the punt returner. And unless you have a better punt returner, that's still his job.
Yeah, and people seem to be more down on him than they should. I mean, it was over the last 11 weeks, he had like the 6th highest average in the league. I mean, he's not Darren Sproles, he's not Brian Mitchell, but big 27-yarder in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But he was solid. Like once he had a couple muffs early, and he cleaned that up, and I thought he was fine after that. And he averaged like about 10 yards per return over the last 11 games plus the postseason. So if he can do that again, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He's not going to – I don't think he'll ever score a touchdown. He may never have like a 50-yard return. but he seems to have really good judgment. He's smart. He fields the ball cleanly. Find somebody better than him, put him on the team, but I don't know if that guy's out there.
I hope one day he rips off a touchdown, points up to the press box, lets you have it. All right. Tight end.
Wasn't Vinny Curry going to do that? Like when he got his first career sack,
Maybe.
He told us he was going to point to the press box.
That sounds like Vinny. I don't remember that, but I believe it.
Yeah.
Tight end. I kept 3. Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll, Grant Calcaterra. Run it back.
I kept Goddard, Calcaterra, and Dalton Keene. And
Dalton Keene. I thought if you were going to say anyone else, it would have been Dan Arnold.
Yeah, and I thought about Dan Arnold, but I mean, I think I'm not sure Jack Stoll's a good enough blocker to make the roster as a blocking tight end. And I think he's okay. And he seems like an okay receiver when they've thrown him. He's caught a couple of short passes, but I just wonder if, and Keene's a guy who's been hurt a lot, but he's really good on the line of scrimmage, and he's not going to catch a ton of balls either. But I just think they might go in a different direction than Jack Stoll. We'll see. And he's still practice squad eligible if they want to do that. But I just went a little different there.
I think they like Jack Stoll more than people realize.
They might.
Yeah. I think they like him quite a bit. Offensive line. I had them keeping 9. The starting 5, if we put Juergens in the starting 5, or Mailata, Dickerson, Kelsey, Juergens, Lane Johnson, Tyler Steen, obviously going to be on the roster, a 3rd-round pick. That's 6. Jack Driscoll, you're feeling pretty good about that. 7. After that, which way are you going?
I forgot to put Kelsey on mine. Hang on. Now, after those 7, I kept Dennis Kelly and Sua. Okay,
I kept Dennis Kelly and Brett Toth.
Okay.
I think Toth, they really, and that's not probably what I would do. I'm a big Sua fan, but they've really shown how much they like Brett Toth over the last few years.
Yeah, he does have to take that next step, and I think you made the point that we talk so much about Stoutland's success story with Mailata, but the fact that Brent Toth is now a viable NFL lineman after being just a run blocking specialist at Army tells you. I mean, that might be as much of a miracle as getting Jordan Mailata from rugby to left tackle.
It was a big process and a big undertaking for Stout.
Yeah, and I think he loves those challenges as much as he loves working with a Dickerson or a Lane or whoever. But I mean, it could be Toth. Great story. What is this, like his 5th year now?
Yeah, the Eagles lost him once. I don't think they want to lose him again.
Yeah, could be. I like Sua. I think he's pretty solid, so I went that direction.
Yeah, you can do a lot worse than Sua. Trevor Reed, by the way, is a guy I'm going to keep my eye on. Super athletic from Louisville, and another project for Stout.
Louisville, I like that.
How about defensive tackle?
Well, I got Fletch, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, and then I kept 6. I did too. I kept Noah Ellis, and I kept Tui Pelotu against my better judgment. They like him more than I do. It's not my roster; it's their roster. I think they need a backup nose, and I think Noah Ellis might be the best candidate for that job. Yeah,
at least from a prototype perspective, right. He certainly is. He's a big dude. He's like, they list him like 350. He's large. We haven't seen him yet. He didn't practice last year, so
right.
Looking forward to watching him. I had a Jomo on the team, so that I think he has a chance to make the squad. Contavious Street also has a shot.
Yeah, they seem to like him. He's another guy who could really help himself with a good camp. I figure Jomo's kind of a practice squad type guy, but look, they've kept those type of guys on the 53 before. He's certainly got a shot.
Yeah. How about defensive end, Sam linebacker, the whole edge position together? The overhang, as they say.
The overhang guys. I didn't know what to do here. Obviously, Sweat, BG, Reddick, and Nolan Smith. I kept 6. I kept Barnett, and
I did too. Against
my really?
Judgment. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't look. I kept Barnett. I just thought, you know what? You get like this former first round pick who has some ability somewhere in there. Who, you get. I mean, give him a shot and we'll see. I mean, he doesn't have to play like a first round pick, just be a rotational guy. I also kept Janarius Robinson just on a hunch. I think
I had Patrick Johnson instead, but Janarius is interesting. We didn't get to watch him last year. He came after training camp.
But he's a guy with I look at him as a guy with some serious potential, and
he was a third round pick, wasn't he?
It was a high pick.
Fourth round pick. Out of Florida State.
Something like that, 3 or 4. Big dude, athletic. So
fourth round pick, 134 overall.
Okay. Out of what school?
Florida State. I thought for a second you were asking how many players got drafted, and I was like, I don't know.
34 out of 350. No, it's kind of, sometimes you have a hunch, and that's just based on his potential. Somebody liked him enough to make him a fourth round pick. So I figure I'll put him ahead of Patrick Johnson. I knew you were going to have Patrick Johnson because you love him.
Do I?
I think so.
Is he my guy? I don't know. Kyron Johnson was my surviving camp guy last year.
He was.
Yeah. I don't even list him here because he kind of switched to off ball in the spring. So let's go to the linebacker position. I have them keeping 4. And I don't think this is going to be the group they go into the year with.
Yeah, I wrote the exact same thing on here. I mean, gosh, Nick Kobe's probably the only guy that's a flat-out lock.
Yeah. I mean, Nick Moore could be anywhere from a starter to off the roster.
Yeah. I kept Nakobe, Morrow, Christian Ellis, and Sean Bradley. Tempted to put Deon on there, but I just couldn't.
Yeah, once you get to the 4th linebacker, they're going to go special teams first, and that's Bradley over.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, Bradley's a good special teamer, so that was the difference for me. But I also think there's a really high probability that this list will change by final cuts.
I do too. All right, how about cornerback?
Cornerback was another tricky one behind, Slade Bradbury, Ringo, Maddox.
Those 4 roster locks.
Those 4 roster locks, assuming Avante's not still on PUP. I kept Greedy Williams and Josh Jobe.
Okay. I kept Jobe, but I kept Zach McPherson.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what to make of Zach McPherson. 4th round pick, he's got a pretty good chance to stick. But every year the round you were drafted on matters a little less. I don't know. I haven't seen a whole lot from him. So he hasn't played. He hasn't played much, but even like on special teams, he made a couple plays here and there.
I actually think he's become a pretty good special teamer.
Yeah, I'm going Greedy and Jobe. You going?
The Greedy Williams thing is interesting because if Keely Ringo looks like a viable outside backup option from day one, it makes Greedy Williams more expendable.
Yeah, I agree. Similar to Nick Morrow, similar to a few guys.
I'm glad you were greedy with me. We'll go to safety now.
That was the worst Job I've ever heard.
Not bad. Safety, I kept 4 here. Reed Blankenship, Terrell Edmonds, Sidney Brown, Kayvon Wallace.
Yeah, same here. And Kayvon, I think he earned a good long look. He didn't play bad last year when he had a chance.
Not a lock, though. It could come down to him or Justin Evans.
Definitely not a lock. Justin Evans has played more than he has. But, yeah, I went Kayvon.
Okay. And then last but not least, specialists.
Yeah. I went Jake Elliott, Rick Lovato, and TBA. I think the punter on opening day is someone who's not here yet.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you been grinding tape to find the punter?
Yeah, I've been looking at Savroka, John Telchik, and Randall Cunningham. Could probably come in and average 45 yards a punt right now.
I kept Sipas, but
did you really? I just Man,
I remember this is not like I'm not putting this team together. I'm trying to project what they're doing, and
I understand that because I did the same thing.
yeah.
I just don't know how you can. I don't know how they can do that, but look, punters don't grow on trees. So you can't just say, "Hey, bring in a punter." You got to find someone who's better than Sippos. He improved during the regular season, marginally, I guess.
Yeah, he was better, but still lower third of the league.
Lower third. Again, playing outdoors conditions, Northeast. It's harder, but they should have kept Cameron Johnston when they had the chance.
Yeah, at the time they didn't want to spend. It was like 3 years, 10 mil, 3 years, 11 mil, something like that, which is a lot of money for a punter. And the funny thing is, like at the time, they didn't think they were far enough along to spend luxury money on a punter, and they didn't know they were going to turn around and be in the Super Bowl a year later.
Yeah, well, I know one thing: if Cameron Johnson wouldn't hit a 12-yarder to Kadarius Toney in that situation.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. All right. The last thing, you got away a little vacation for you.
I did. And it happened very quickly. I wound up in Lake Placid, New York, home of the 1932 and 1980 Winter Olympics. Beautiful, beautiful little mountain town in northern New York, about 2 hours north of Albany, maybe an hour south of the Canadian border. Spectacular. You'd love it up there. It's right up your alley. Some great climbing and hiking, outdoorsy stuff. But yeah, did you get the photo I sent you?
I do. But before we do this, I want to just mention the one day you sent me a photo, this like beautiful vista where you were staying. And then you said, should I write about the running back market? And I was like, are you kidding? You make fun of me for like caring about this stuff too much. You wanted to write about running back contracts in front of this like beautiful mountain vista. And I was like,
This is like right outside the door.
Yeah, you sent me that, and I was like, gosh, what are you doing? Don't write about running backs. And you didn't.
Well, it was raining that day, and I was like, I was inside for a few hours, but anyway.
But here for YouTube, I did pull up your photo here.
Okay, so I'm walking down Main Street. Lyrics of a song by Sunvolt, who I saw Sunday, and there's these plaques, like there's a Christy Mathewson plaque, and then there's like some sort of Olympic related plaque. And it turns out that they have these plaques commemorating sports achievements and accomplishments in Saranac Lake history. And I'm looking at this, like, what the heck do the Eagles have to do with Lake Saranac or Saranac Lake? And then I'm standing there and I remembered in 1945, 46, and 47, the Eagles had training camp at Saranac Lake, at Saranac Lake High School. And they signed a 10-year contract to, they only stayed there 3 years, but they had their training camp there. And there's a plaque in the middle of town commemorating the Eagles' stay at Saranac Lake for training camp. And I think I texted you, the media room was really small.
You beat me to it. That's cool, though.
It's so beautiful. Imagine being up there for 6 weeks, training camp.
I don't know. South Philly sounds pretty good starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the frat house is beautiful and everything, but so the Eagles were up there. They moved training camp around a lot back then. They would be, they were in Wisconsin one year. They would go all over the place. One year they had training camp in Chestnut Hill, PA.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, at what's now Chestnut Hill Academy. There's St. Martin's, right on St. Martin's Avenue. There's a field, and they had training camp there. But it's interesting to look. Maybe I'll do a story on the history of Eagles training camps and where they were.
I'd be really interested in that. That'd be good.
All right, I'll do that right now.
Okay, cool. All right, if you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button, subscribe there as well. We made it through the.
He's not going to be able to get to sleep tonight.
You're probably right about that. But we made it. We made it through the dark days of summer. Like there's the dog days of summer.
We always do. Yeah. What time are you going to get up tomorrow? 5:30?
Up early enough to get a good breakfast in, make my lunch, and get down there pretty early.
How early would I have to get to the NovaCare complex to beat you there? Like 8:15?
Pretty early, yeah.
7:45?
You gonna try?
I'm going to try.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll see you tomorrow. We'll see the rest of you for our next pod, which will be after the first practice. So get ready for that one. Take care, everyone. This has been Eagle Eye for Roob. I'm Dave. We will talk to you soon.